Howdy, 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 and welcome back to Let's Read the Warhammer 40K Wiki. Um, it- there we go. So I did not make a bookmark when I stopped reading this last time, but I'm pretty sure I was at the combat doctrine. So, Tyranids often attempt to first conquer a planet through subterfuge and infiltration. Space Hulks and other derelicts are infested with gene stealers. I'm pretty sure I read this already. Either that or it's just doing the thing where it repeats itself for no reason. Because I do remember reading about what Gene Stealer cults were. They spread through the planet. If the Hive Fleet is victorious, they will descend to the planet and heal the atmosphere. Hmm. So I think that first chunk of the way they do their combat doctrine is just re-explaining the Gene Stealer method. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to reread that. I'm just going to skip to the mechanical war machines. And like I said, if I almost just reread something, it's because I failed to bookmark where I left off at. I thought I did, but I did not. And it's been like a month and a half at this point since I last touched on this, as of recording. So the Tyranids do not build their starships and weapons from metal and plastic like the other intelligent races of the Milky Way galaxy. Instead, they use gene splicing and bioengineering to grow them from the organic biomatter harvested from the planets they consume. Every weapon, gland, and projectile used in their armies is a bioengineered Tyranid organism in its own right, from the spores polluting the atmosphere to the grotesque spires that burst from the tortured ground during an invasion. Tyranid warrior organisms are creatures of visceral horror, implacable monsters with razor-sharp claws which can tear a man apart in the blink of an eye, and grotesque biocannons that fire hungry, parasitic projectiles into their prey's flesh. Every weapon and projectile used by the Hive Fleets is a living organism or biomorph, grown from the reconstituted biomatter of previous invasions. The Tyranids have no form of mechanical technology and, instead, harness an advanced form of biotechnology to create organic equivalents of the tools, weaponry, and ammunition used by other intelligent species. These creatures live in a highly symbiotic fashion, fusing into each other's flesh so that it is often impossible to say where one Tyranid creature ends and another begins. In this way, Tyranid warrior beasts wield living weapons that are literally extensions of their own bodies, each one a killing machine perfectly adapted to slaughter its victims. The bioconstruct nature of the Tyranids makes them a terrible foe to face, for their armies contain a creature specialized for every conceivable facet of warfare, which can be altered and regrown to suit a battle's needs in a short span of time. Thus can a Hive fleet adapt to generate a force capable of overwhelming any opposition, unleashing a vast throng of ferocious alien monsters that can fly, run, burrow, and stalk through the defenses of any foe. Their invasion progression. Though never a verdant world, the lifeless ball of rock that we discovered was unrecognizable as Tyran Primus. The creatures that did this are a threat to the galaxy, must be exterminated by the light of the God Emperor, Inquisitor Cryptoman, concluding his report on the ruins of Tyran Primus. It was probably much angrier sounding than that, but I'm recording it like 11 o'clock at night. The Tyranid threat is unprecedented in its ability to transform a planet thriving with nature's bounty into a barren orb of lifeless rock. When a Tyranid Hive fleet descends upon a prey world to strip it of life, it does so in a series of distinct stages. And here we have Tyranid invasion of a new prey world advances through a series of known stages. Each wave of the invasion unleashes a fresh menagerie of biological nightmares, perfectly designed to sow despoilment and death. In mere solar days, a once thriving planet is scoured of every drop of organic matter. Hunger briefly satiated, the Hive Fleet drifts away in search of its next meal, leaving nothing but an airless tomb behind. How do they even eat the atmosphere? Reconnaissance. The earliest stages of a Tyranid infection are best characterized by their subtlety. At this stage, the Xenos evaluate the planet's viability for attack and begin to infect the native life forms. The three Tyranid species most active during this stage are Vanguard drone ships, Lictors, and Gene Stealers. These bioforms share two critical characteristics for identifying new target planets and performing infiltrations: stealth and independence. All of the organisms involved have physiological abilities that are focused upon concealment. These talents are exploited to the utmost so that they can initially observe the native environment safely. As there are often a very limited number of Tyranids involved at this stage, these specimens exhibit an uncharacteristic degree of self-preservation. The creatures are clearly aware that they must survive and propagate before the invasion may proceed, and this is a picture of a Ripper Swarm brood scouting the area of a prey world. The specimens are distinctive from most of the Tyranid horrors in that they are also capable of stable and independent action. The vast majority of known Tyranid organisms are incapable of coordinated activity when separated from the psychic emanations of the hive mind. As these creatures must be capable of acting when light years distant from the swarm, they manifest a greater degree of intelligence and animal cunning than would otherwise be expected. This becomes most evident in the often unexpected subtlety of their plans. Vanguard drone ships depend upon speed, their relatively small size, and their reduced psychic and propulsion signatures to enable them to quietly scout out new star systems. In many cases, a Vanguard drone ship will deposit a portion of its cargo onto the surface of a likely world, and then quickly leave the system to scout out targets in other systems. As their time in the system is both brief and stealthy, Imperial agencies may remain completely unaware of the foreboding intrusion. In those cases, when a drone ship is identified, it must immediately be considered the highest priority target in the system, as destroying it before it can deploy its cargo may significantly delay any Tyranid intrusion. Lictors are masters of unseen reconnaissance. After insertion from a drone ship, these Xenos immediately begin scouting the wilds of the newly infected planet. Using their feeder tendrils, they analyze the atmosphere, mineral availability, and the characteristics of all life forms. In addition, these fierce predators also target isolated animals and even sapiens to absorb their memories as they devour them. This information is compiled and sent back to the hive mind as soon as a synaptic node within range is available. Any lictor that can be eliminated prior to the start of a full Tyranid invasion can substantially slow the attack, as the invading Xenos are less optimized for the planet's ecosystem. Gene stealers are the most insidious of these early invaders. As they scout out the planet, they also infect the planet's fauna with Tyranid genetic material. The corruption of the planet's native gene code eventually results in hybrid native Tyranid creatures that are subject to the will of a broodlord or other representative of the Tyranid hive mind. It is also believed that gene stealers may use their cunning and stealth to infiltrate planets without the aid of a drone ship. Specimens have been found on abandoned space hulks and hidden among the cargo holds of warp-capable vessels. These creatures must be eliminated with extreme prejudice before they establish a breeding nest in a community of dedicated hybrid organisms. Once Tyranid species have established a toehold on a planet, their strategy soon changes. Successful integration of the planet's wildlife triggers these infiltrators to emit a psychic call to the swarm. This call draws a fleet of vessels, including a hive ship, to the system. The arrival of the hive ship and its escorts heralds the next phase of the invasion. Infestation! The Tyranids begin to Tyranids begin to infest the planet. The arrival of the hive ship and its escort vessels heralds the next stage of a Tyranid system invasion. As a powerful synaptic node of the hive mind, the hive ship disrupts the warp in a radius of several light years. By the time one of these massive void-faring creatures has arrived, it is often too late for a planet to send out an astropath or other psychic cry for help. Even vessels sent to defend a system under threat of Tyranid attack may be unable to exit the immaterium in a system that has come under the influence of the shadow and the warp. Once the hive ship has come into range of a target planet, it immediately begins to launch a rain of mycetic spores into the atmosphere and towards the planet's surface. Some of these pods are filled with microbial life. These hostile microorganisms immediately begin to change the planet's atmosphere, ocean, soil, flora, and fauna. Well, that answers that question. Complex organic molecules are broken down and recreated in formats that are best suited for absorption by the swarm. Other spores bear more complex Tyranid creatures. Some of these, including the various strains of gaunts and gargoyles, immediately begin preparing for the assaults that are to come. Other strains begin to burrow deeper into the planet's crust. These may include Mawlocks and Trigons. As these creatures burrow, they plant the spores that can later grow into capillary towers. Other organisms may use the tunnels these massive bioforms create to access a planet's mineral wealth and subterranean life in the shelter of these tunnels. At the same time that this reign of devastation begins, those gene stealers and lictors which have already infested the planet reveal themselves. Using the knowledge they have obtained and the hybrid fauna they have spawned, these creatures sow confusion through the ranks of the defenders. By selectively targeting officers and communication hubs, the infiltrators can effectively delay or even compromise a planet's defenses. During this phase of the encroachment, a planet's defenders must take rapid and decisive action or all hope may be lost. Cutting the attack off at its source is the optimal solution. If the hive ship can be destroyed, the remainder of the Tyranid fleet may lose its cohesion, falling into confusion. This presents the defenders with an opportunity to divide and conquer the remaining forces. While less effective, destroying myetic spores as they fall to the planet may also help the cause. Even the massive bulk of a hive ship has a limit to its resources. Each spore destroyed may mean greatly fewer organisms to face on the ground. The Tyranid hive mind possesses the ability to make a tactical assessment and modify its strategy. On admittedly rare occasions, a fleet facing unexpectedly stiff resistance may break off the assault and retreat to attack an alternative target. Countermeasures against gene stealers and their ilk are crucial to this stage. With telepathy restricted, any additional loss of communication on the planet could quickly doom the defenders. Extensive security measures must be taken to preserve the integrity of all communication and command centers. This picture is the main forces of the Tyranids arriving on the doomed planet. Assault. Once the Tyranid forces have established a foothold on the planet's surface, they quickly begin the process of eliminating any resistance. Endless swarms of the smaller bioforms, including gaunts, gargoyles, and gene stealers, rampage through the skies, across the land, and under the oceans. Interspersed with these creatures, the larger bioforms, including carnifexes, tyrannofexes, and even hierophant biotitans, accompany their smaller brethren, sowing endless destruction across the planet. These varied breeds come together in large hordes that sweep forward to create battlefields that may be hundreds of kilometers in length. Behind the battlefront, capillary towers, many thousands of meters in height, burst forth from the planet's crust. These towers consolidate the biomass that the swarm has already absorbed, using it to breed additional organisms to assist in the assault. Like the Guardian Pillars from Breath of the Wild, I guess. I wonder if that's what they got that idea from. Probably not. While the towers may appear to be a Tyranid plant analog, they are no less aggressive than the more mobile bioforms. Capillary towers extend tendrils throughout the planet that can absorb indigenous species, both plants and any small or slower-moving organisms. As they do this, the towers also filter the planet's atmosphere, absorbing the biomass of microbes and small flying creatures. Along the battlefront, termagants use their ranged weapons to lay waste to opposition, while hormagaunts boldly engage any opposition in close combat. These Xenos, along with the other variants of the Gaunt genus, may be found in swarms of hundreds coordinated by Tyranid warriors. In those instances when sheer numbers prove inadequate to overcome the planet's defenses, the hive mind may direct larger strains to assist in these battles. For those planets with extensive defenses, the swarm may grow exceptionally large creatures. Specimens of the Dominatrix and the Hierophant strains have been observed, which are comparable in size and strength to Imperial Titans. In cases when a defensive point seems insurmountable, the hive mind is quick to adapt its strategy. In many cases, Raveners and Trigons may be used to burrow under defenders, attacking from behind or beneath enemy lines. In other cases, Shrikes or Harpies may make strafing runs from above. While the swarm will readily sacrifice thousands of bioforms to take a single meter of ground, it will not waste them needlessly. Alternative strategies are constantly employed, as the Tyranids are clear masters of adaptation. It is worth noting that the battlefront swarms that cut across the planet's surface do not typically devour the planet's defenders, rather they leave a swath of refuse in their wake to be consumed by the next wave of organisms. This carpet of the dead may, of course, also include those Tyranid organisms that the defenders have managed to overcome. Their deaths hold little meaning to the hive mind. They have served their purpose and will serve the swarm once more after their corpses are devoured. In the skies over the planet, gargoyles and harpies swarm in numbers large enough to block out the light of the system's star. While they may assist in land-based battles, they also serve two additional purposes. Like the capillary towers, these flying organisms devour the biomass of the skies, returning it to the Tyranid swarm upon their deaths. They also serve to block out the sunlight from any photosynthetic life. Over time, this can have an effect on the planet's atmosphere and climate as plant life is unable to synthesize oxygen. The only effective recourse at this stage of the invasion is all-out war. By this stage, the invading forces have firmly established a presence on the target planet. Eliminating the hive ship would not avert the damage done. Further, depending on the numbers and types of creatures on the surface, the hive mind might still persevere. Even if the hive mind were overcome and the majority of the Xenos were eliminated, the battles to cleanse the planet completely could continue for Terran millennia. The Tyranid genetic taint extends to the microbial level, and all of these Xenos bioforms are strongly resistant to biological and chemical toxins. Even the tiniest Tyranid organism could have the potential to spawn more dangerous organisms given time and opportunity. And then there's subjugation. And there's the capillary towers gather the dead biomass. Even as the more militant bioforms continue to battle the planet's defenders, others begin sweeping up behind them, collecting all available biomass. Some of the substrates collected are used to generate additional Tyranid creatures. In this manner, the planet's natural resources are turned against it, providing additional tools for the swarm. The majority, however, is set aside to feed the hive ships orbiting the planet. Those massive creatures generally delay their feeding until after the planet has been secured. Near the battlefront, untold thousands of maggot-like rippers are deployed from the sky to form massive, tightly packed swarms. With fang-filled jaws, they devour every organic substance they can find, living or dead. Once these abominations have eaten all they can, they slowly drag their bloated bodies towards digestive pools formed by the capillary towers. Rather than spewing the devoured biomass into the tools, the rippers hurl themselves in, to be digested along with all that they devoured. New rippers are continuously created to propagate the cycle of gluttony. As the planet's surface is depleted, similar bioforms deplete all of the life in the oceans and within the planet's crust. Eel-like rippers swarm through the oceans in massive swarms, devouring all of the native sea life. Burrowing variants expand the tunnels dug by the Trigons and Raveners, consuming subterranean fungus, root systems, and any burrowing fauna. Mineral reserves are also depleted, particularly rare ores that may be incorporated into the exoskeletons of the various weapon biomorphs. Massive capillary towers develop in even the deepest parts of the planet's oceans. These towers, which may stretch several kilometers up through the sea, are capable of withstanding the crushing pressures of the depths and thriving in even the coldest of waters. As they grow, they may even modify the planet's tidal flow as their powerful metabolic filtration systems draw in all biomass. The only effective recourse at this stage is exterminatus. Planets which have been subdued by the Tyranids are no longer salvageable. The only hope for the Imperium or another faction is to destroy the feeding system before the biomass can be used to feed the fleet for further attacks. One positive aspect is that at this stage, the Tyranid fleet may have expended its resources in preparation for the gluttony they expect as the planet's biomass is absorbed. Attacking the void-faring bioforms and annihilating the planet may be easier than it would have been at an earlier stage of the invasion. And then there's absorption. As the last of the system's defenders fall, the capillary towers begin to feed biomass back to the hive ship and its escorts. The massive living vessels extend tendrils through the atmosphere, which make contact with the capillary towers as they grow to pierce the edges of the atmosphere. Biomass is drawn up the towers through a combination of massive pumping organs and suction. Once the last of the defenders have fallen, the surviving creatures of the Tyranid hordes hurl themselves into the digestive pools near the capillary towers. Their bodies are broken down and devoured so that the biomass may be returned to the fleet to be recycled into new creatures for future conquests. Along with their biomass, their memories, genetic innovations, and the gene pattern of all the planet's native lifeforms are also absorbed. After the last vestiges of life have been absorbed, the capillary towers begin to absorb the planet's water systems. All of these liquids are transferred into the void-faring organisms, some of which may grow dramatically in size, as their storage vesicles expand to accommodate the newfound resources. As this happens, many of the capillary towers are also broken down so that their biomass may be reabsorbed. Finally, the planet's atmosphere and then the last few massive capillary towers are absorbed into the hive ships. Some of the Magi biologists theorize that this may require even more massive void-faring Tyranids than those previously identified. Others postulate that the ships use previously unseen techniques to compress the atmosphere into a solid state. Though the precise mechanism is unknown to the Imperium, the outcome is certain. Nothing is left behind but a barren, airless rock of little value. As it travels between systems, the hive mind analyzes the new genetic patterns it has identified. Some of these may be used to develop new bioforms. Of course, these new strengths may not appear immediately. The hive mind may save them for deployment at a time when a new strategy is required. Clearly, adaptation is a key factor in the Tyranids' long-term success and survival. By this point, the battle lays well and truly lost. Any defenders who arrive are far too late to save the planet. Their only possible hope is to spread word to neighboring star systems in the hopes that they might arrive before the Tyranid threat. Attacking the void-faring bioforms immediately after they have fed on a world is to attack them at the height of their power. So then that brings us to Tyranid species. They appear in a multitude of genera, and all of them have extremely rapid rate of evolution directed by the hive mind, adapting to threats in direct response to their presence. Tyranid matter is constantly reabsorbed into the biomass reclamation pools to create new species and adapt existing ones to suit the hive mind's immediate purpose. So we got the hive tyrants. There's a picture of it. Window. This thing confronting orc boys. They are large and enormously strong Tyranids who act as the leaders of the swarm and a synaptic conduit for the smaller creatures. They are highly psychic and highly mutable, and have a closer connection to the hive mind than most of the other ones. They are skilled at close and range combat, more so than other Tyranids. Sometimes they have wings. Imperial Techno-Magi believe the hive tyrants are the repository of a hive fleet's collective consciousness, which means they completely embody the hive mind, yet their destruction does not in any way diminish its presence. Broodlords are another synaptic organism regarded as the epitome of the Genestealer breed. It's one of the first Genestealers to make planetfall on a victim world. They are devastating in combat and are specifically adept at infiltration on the battlefield to get closer to the enemy. They are very adaptable and highly intelligent. They are also the center of Genestealer cults, and they coordinate the cult's attacks. If the Broodlord is killed, then one of the pure-strained Genestealers will eventually evolve into a new Broodlord after a period of time. Tyrant Guards are a special species of Tyranid spawned in small broods for the sole purpose of defending the Tyrant. They are large, tough, and difficult to harm, and it is nearly impossible to surpass their defense. They are completely blind, utterly controlled by the synapse creatures they protect. On occasion, Carnifex also benefit from the Tyrant Guard's protection. They are believed by some Adeptus Mechanicus Magi to contain the DNA of the defeated Space Marine chapters, but the Imperium considers this blasphemy and denies its very likely possibility. Tyranid warriors are synaptic foot troops for the swarm, and between the sides of a tyrant and a gaunt, they serve as psychic resonators and assist in guiding the lesser Tyranid troops into battle. They're fast and powerful, with the capability to be strong at range combat or in close quarters in a similar fashion to the Hive Tyrant. The Lictors are large, deadly organisms bred for stealth. They're basically chameleonic in nature, allowing to blend into their surroundings to hunt and later kill prey. They're usually only seen when the Tyranids are springing a deadly ambush onto an unsuspecting army, unleashing a bioengineered killing machine within their own ranks. They range ahead of the swarms, performing commando raids of sorts, and gathering information by devouring the victim's brains. The Lictors possess stealth and cunning of an unprecedented scale, to a point where they can best the famous Katachan fighters in jungle combat. Many Imperial Guard commanders have lost their troops in the shadows as they blink for a second. That is the terrifying, undetectable Lictor at work. Gaunts are the basic staple combat unit of a Tyranid swarm. They are smaller and less powerful, physically powerful than most other Tyranids, but they're extraordinarily adaptable and always attack in large numbers. They are fully mutable species, and some have are grown with extra wings, adrenaline, and venom sacs, and even bizarre biomechanical weaponized symbiotes, including the dreaded spike rifle. The Gargoyles are essentially winged variants of Gaunts. They possess many similar traits, including a smaller size and physical prowess than most Tyranids. They retain most of the physical traits of Gaunts, however, and their lower legs have atrophied to little more than stumps. Like their cousin, the Gaunt, they are capable of being armed with a host of biomechanical symbiotic weaponry. The Rippers are small, snake-like organisms which devour biomatter so that the DNA can be absorbed by the hive ship, so we already know what the Genestealers are. The Carnifexes are originally known as Screamer Killers. They are huge, hulking, living battering rams armed with a variety of biomechanical symbiotic weaponry. Even stronger than the Hive Tyrants, they are used for assaulting fortified positions and as armor formations, such as during boarding actions. They are the equivalent of tanks or Space Marine dreadnoughts, and the monstrous creatures can be mutated into a multitude of different subspecies, some designed for tank hunting, others built to produce acid and toxins ideal for anti-infantry combat. The Raveners seem to be related to Rippers and Tyranid warriors. They are large beasts designed for fast assaults against lighter enemies and dig through the ground to perform surprise raids. Zoanthropes are a psychic artillery whose highly evolved brains swell out of proportion with their bodies. Through their use of psychic powers, they can perform a number of roles on the battlefield. Some evidence points to later incarnations of Zoanthropes being improved by the Hive Mind's assimilation of Eldari DNA following the Hive Fleet Kraken Tyranid assault on the craft world Eandon. Biovores are sluggish, sessile creatures whose only task is to grow and launch spore mines towards the enemy. They grow inside of the Biovore's body and then are hurled across the battlefield through a muscle spasm. Biowars are supposedly evolved from Orcish gene stock. Sounds about right. Biotitans are enormous organisms evolved as a response to other races' titans and other super heavy war machines. They are, as of yet, the largest land-based Tyranid creatures encountered. They range from 9 to 30 meters tall and can single-handedly take out an entire squad of Space Marines. Norn Queens are gargantuan organisms that are essentially biomechanical wombs that give birth to all the other known Tyranids. Dominatrix are the Norn Queens linked to the Tyranid ground forces. They are huge, almost as large as a Biotitan, and the stronger, more psychically powerful female Hive Tyrant. They are symbiotically fused with a smaller warrior-sized entity which acts as a psychic synaptic link to the linked Norn Queens aboard her ship. Trigons are powerful serpentine organisms that tunnel behind enemy lines. Towering over even a Carnifex, they are one of the most powerful Tyranids breeds in existence. Trigons can become synapse creatures to control other Tyranids. They can lead a force of Tyranids known as a tunnel swarm. The swarm is usually comprised of lictors and hormagaunts. The armor of a Trigon vibrates as it moves, thus creating a bioelectric current which can be released at will on a group of foes. Mawlocks. The Mawlocks are a subspecies of the Trigon. They are worm-like and blind, though they are incredibly agile despite their size. Their short claws are not suited for close combat, rather to tunnel efficiently under the battlefield, although they are by no means defenseless. They prefer to swallow their prey to be digested alive for several days. Despite being blind, the Mawloc can gather information of the surface through pressure waves since they can travel through solid and fluid objects below ground. When a Mawloc begins to home in on an enemy, several severe tremors erupt on the surface, which can tell the Mawloc where its prey is with more accuracy. If the sound is regular or rhythmic, it is easier for the Mawloc to home in on. Even a heartbeat will tell it where its next meal is. And then there's the Hive Guard, and they are trusted with protecting Tyranid structures and are capable of unleashing salvo after salvo of intense firepower. Essentially gun beasts, they are heavily armored in shell-like carapaces, and have a body designed to be a stable firing platform for the massive impaler cannon bonded to their forelimbs. Physically linked to the shard beasts that comprise the ammunition of their cannons, Hive Guard can target enemies with unerring accuracy, even those who they cannot see because they can receive sensory impressions from the shard beasts in mid-flight. So, forces of Tyranids. The commanders, we got the Death Leaper, Hive Tyrant, Melanthrope, Maliceptor, One Eye, Swarm Lord, Turbigon, Tyranid Warrior Prime, Tyrant Guard, and the Parasite of Mortrex. For the elites, we have Doom of Malantai, Haruspex, Hive Guard Brood, Lictor Brood, Pyrovore Brood, Venomthorpe Brood, Umgarl Genestealer Brood, Zoanthrope Brood. Troops are warriors, genestealers, and broodlords. Got Sporcis, Termagant, Hormagant, Rippers, Gargoyle Brood, Harpies, Hive Crones, Mycetic Spores, Ravener Brood, Red Terror, Sky Slasher, Swarm Brood, Spore Mind Cluster, and Tyranid Shrike. And then heavy support, there's the Biovores, the Carnifex, Exocrine, Mawlocks, Pyrovores again, Trigon, Trigon Prime, Tyrannofex, and other Biotitans. Which brings us to game history. They were initially described in the first edition of 40K, Rogue Trader, with their basic form not too different from that of used today. The only additional troop type was an enslaved alien race, the Zote. At the time, they were not an important faction in the 40K universe. In later editions, they became a playable faction in their own right, and it was revealed that the Gene Stealers, first popularized in the board game Space Hulk, were in fact part of the advanced reconnaissance element of the main Tyranid hive fleets. Trivia. The Tyranids bear a great many similarities to the xenomorphs designed by H.R. Geiger for the Alien film series, such as their hive mentality, innate hostility, and the appearance of a large number of the different bioforms. Okay, so that finishes up reading about Tyranids and all their battle nonsense. I know I probably could have clicked on all these articles, but I wouldn't be reading the whole things. I would just be like looking at the pictures. I've heard the name Old One Eye though. The unique Tyranid Carnifex known as Old One Eye. It has the ability to regenerate itself from mortal wounds. It has the scars of many blows that should have killed it. And rumors persist among Imperial forces that it has been killed more than a dozen times. It's armed with huge crab-like claws capable of ripping even the hardiest foe to shreds. He attacked the ultramarine world of Kalth, swatted away Lehman Russ's battle tanks, plasma pistol through the eye and into its brain. It was the first time it was brought down, and is still unable to regenerate its eye and is permanently scarred with a plasma burn running across its skull. Interesting. Well, he just seems to be his own dude, Tyranid that's just that crazy. So, at this point, I feel that I should probably cover the orcs next, since they're as far as I know, the main faction of enemies in Warhammer Space Marine. So I'd like to know a little bit more about them before I do that. And I've played a little bit of that game before, but I've not gotten far enough to know what's going on. Only far enough to be a little annoyed by the puzzles. So, at this point in time, the only thing I know about the orcs in 40k is that if they believe something, it's true for them, which is why purple is a stealthy color. So, and they come from spores. That's pretty much all I know about the orcs. But I might also cover Nurgle, because of the various Warhammer games I've played in the last month or so, if it's not Nurgle or orcs, then it's probably Tyranids. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you'll need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well, so that you're notified of future uploads. And I will see y'all in the next video. Later.